Hello and welcome to Athlantic, the show where an American and a Brit take turns crossing the pond to learn about sport culture in the UK and the USA. I'm Adam Jordan, your resident American.
And I'm Harry Collins, your resident Brit. We are back. We did it. We had the longest of our little interludes because as we pushed through the summer, lots of transfers and changes happening in football, and I know in other sports we've got big trades, but I don't think there's been a single trade bigger than Adam Jordan being traded from the great state of North Carolina to Adam. Where are you joining us from
today? To
the
Empire State of New York. That's right. I am not live. From Brooklyn.
Should we do this live?
Actually, this whole thing is, all of our episodes have been live this whole time. Amazing.
Just for you.
Yes. I'm in Brooklyn now. I got a new job and just moved into a new place. That's why this background is not at all finalized. This setup is not at all finalized. So you may see a couple more permutations of this before we get settled into something permanent. I think you can see over my shoulder we've still got some art that needs to get put up on the walls. So moves are fun, moves are exciting, moves are also complicated, as anybody who's ever done one knows. So appreciate everybody for bearing with us on the mini series here, taking a little bit longer than we had anticipated to get from episode 1 to now episode 2, and as Harry's jerseys in the background remind us, episode 17 of Athlantic. So we want to take this time as a little turning point to thank everybody for watching along with us and hanging out with us as we discuss the two sporting cultures that both of us love so much. Anyway, go ahead, Harry. I didn't even give you a chance.
Now that
we got to get back into it. I have to give you a chance to talk. I can't just be the Adam goes on long soliloquies show.
I think now that you've taken the plunge and have set up the much needed New York office for Athlantic, we are going to try and push to come back to far more regular episodes. The TikTok's coming back in a pretty strong way. It's okay. We're back. We're going to push through. 17 is going to become 27. It's going to become 50 so
True.
fast. And wow, now I'm writing checks I don't think we can cash, but hey, that's okay.
We're absolutely going to cash those checks. Mark my words. Don't even. Come on. We're in it for the long haul here. The other thing too that we've talked about in our personal lives here is that New York and London, it is if you get the right flight deal, that you can make an excuse to make that a long weekend. If you squint and press the book button, that's a little bit easier to swallow than even a New York to North Carolina or a London to North Carolina. So
the Venn diagram of people that flew on Concorde and have a podcast is pretty slim, and I'm gutted that we missed. By 22 short years, we missed the ability to cross the Atlantic in 3 hours.
True.
On our show notes, Adam, I can see you say you've got some beef with the BBC.
I have beef with the BBC. That actually this is perfect because talking about the kind of American-British exchange here. The BBC is making it, starting 8 days from when we are recording this, is making it harder for us Americans and for anybody outside of the UK to listen to the BBC radio stations. So I, in my complete, normalness as a person, pretty regularly pop on the BBC Radio Sounds app or BBC Sounds app and listen to, Radio Scotland or the Live 5 Drive, just because I rather enjoy that. And it's a great way to get football commentary, soccer commentary, or just like good perspective on the U.S. or U.S. sports from like outside. It's just cool.
Yeah.
And the Anglophile that I am, I enjoy it. I've like gotten there's hosts that I love. There's like shows that I love, and now for some reason, it seems to be some sort of licensing, rights dispute or issue, or there's some sort of financial reason behind it. I'm certain, but anyway, I have beef with the BBC because they're taking that away. I can still listen to like a couple of channels, but I don't even really, Harry, expect you to have a response to that. I just needed to air that.
It's pretty bad news for you and the 4 other people in the US that use the BBC Sounds app. And to the 5 of you, our heart goes out. There's absolutely no support.
No.
I don't remember last time I used the BBC Sounds app.
The people that listen, the Americans that listen to the BBC Sounds app are not the kind of people that I think most are going to listen to in the first place, because we clearly have a problem. So thanks for listening to this podcast, by the way.
BBC Radio 5 Live is absolutely a staple of, I think, being an British sports fan. I have listened I genuinely reckon I've got about 1,000 hours listening to Radio 5 Live. None of them were deliberate. They're all my dad's choice, because we're driving in a car somewhere. And it's on before, during, after the football match that we've, slummed down to. So I can understand why I would be upset if listening to BBC Sounds is a little bit harder. But, 2,700 miles away, forgive me for not being super sympathetic.
Listen, I actually made a TikTok about this not too long ago, about how listening to 5 Live gave me a great appreciation for the similarity of our sporting cultures, or just like the unique or the universal language of calling into sports talk radio and complaining about your team after a loss. I loved hearing that from people that are not like, SEC football fans. It's just so great to hear that exists everywhere.
I called in once and was put on the radio once, and it was in 2012, 2013 after a Brighton game, and I made some because you text first, and you have to text like a 20 word. This is probably different now, or it's probably not what happened at the time. I'm just misremembering it, which makes for a terrible anecdote. You had to give like a 15 word max blurb about what you were going to say, and the host has been like, any Brighton fans on the way home, let us know what you thought about the game, blah blah blah. And I texted something about a specific player who was really, I thought, had a really bad game. And I made a joke about how he looked like a baby bird, like floundering and like flapping about, because he spent the whole game like gesturing like this, trying to get the crowd involved, but he wasn't doing anything. And I made this joke, and then I was called by my least favorite sports pundit of all time. We were connected to Robbie Savage, who, I'm not sure if you're aware, he had a absolutely mediocre career as a footballer, was well known for being a bit of a wind-up merchant and his very long blonde hair.
The best athlete, or the best sports talk radio hosts, are those that weren't at the top level of their league and have hot takes. That's the whole point of sports talk radio.
But then the dream of yes, but the dream of being a professional footballer then looks like an internship to be a crap radio host.
Jeez. Okay, anyway, Robbie Savage catching strays now. Here we go.
No. They're not strays. If he's listening, if he's one of the 40 people that are going to listen to this, I want him to know that he hurt me, because I was very clearly, it was 2012. I was 13, 14, 15, 16.
I was going to say, that's not a range, Harry. That's a definitive
I think I was
age
I was
that you
13
were.
or 14. I sounded young.
Sure.
I made the joke again on the radio, and then Robbie Savage was like, "Yeah, but why?" And I was like, "Hey, I'm just here to like, I just had a joke. Like somebody clearly saw my text, saw the joke. I thought it was funny." And he was like, "I don't think that's a fair reflection of Kemi Augustine's performance." And I was like, "Oh my god, I don't know what to do." And then I panicked. I think I said the joke again, and then I like hung up. And then, of course, like 2 weeks later, it turns out that that player was going through some like really tough, like personal stuff. And I jumped on the radio as a child, made fun of him, got torn apart by my least favorite footballer in human history. And then I just sort of sat there quietly in the car on the way home, didn't say anything. Bless him, my dad didn't really know what to do. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry. Just commandeered this. This is clearly the sort of therapy
You know
I needed.
what?
This sat with me for ages. I hate Robbie Savage.
Wow. Okay. This is the most. I
Wow.
think we try.
I feel lighter.
To do,
Wow.
well, I'm glad. I think we try to do a pretty good job of keeping things in perspective on this show and keeping things.
Yeah.
I don't think we ever try to like badmouth anyone, or I certainly try to not say. I try to keep from airing any grievances about anybody on this show, because that's not the point of this, and there's
We don't
plenty
want
of other
to burn
things to
any
talk
bridges.
about. But clearly Harry,
No, not-
just if Robbie Savage walks up, sees you on the street, it's on site for Harry. Robbie Savage actually in the news recently. He is just appointed the new manager of Forest Green Rovers. Fun fact. As of 2
Wow,
weeks
how
ago.
did you know that?
The BBC. Thank you, BBC Sport. And which if this had happened 2 weeks later, I wouldn't know about it. So thanks, BBC.
Oh my god.
Please.
God, Athlantic. This podcast is about to get crap because Adam's only source of English news is going to get wiped off the face of the earth. It's radio.
Yeah.
Hey, that's a really good
That
segue.
is a great
I know we're not
segue
there yet.
into our
It's a really good
main
segue
topic.
for what we want to talk about now, and we're going to come back to people that cling on to old mediums and don't embrace the future. So
Are you
catch up, old
accusing
man.
me of
Now,
being old? Okay. Yeah, so
100%.
before you
if you weren't producing all of this, 100%.
Before you launch into this, want to reset the table here. So this is part 2 of a 3-part mini-series on sports and technology and how technology has shaped sports. In the previous episode, we talked about how technology has helped us officiate sports and helped us adjudicate disputes in sports and the pluses and minuses of that. Here in part 2, we're going to talk about how it affects how everybody here takes in sports for the most part, which is watching it on television or other mediums. So Harry, take it away.
So, yeah, that's a pretty class summary. The way that we have watched sport initially was a privilege enjoyed only by some, either local or incredibly like wealthy, well off. If we go back to like the pre-1920s and the pre-war era, if you were not in attendance at a sport event, you maybe read it in a newspaper, or you heard from somebody that was also there. Original commentators included people that attended sports games, and like a town crier would go and tell people in like pubs and things, which I think's cool. And if we didn't have the if we didn't have the internet, that's what we would do. Then, of course, the way that we all think about, if you think about sport, 99% of any sports moment you think about, you actually watch through the TV. And it's a great honor to see some of these amazing sports moments live. But honestly, sometimes it's better to watch it on TV. And I think we can both think of sports that work far better through the box.
Oh, yes.
And
Immediate example that comes to mind is thinking about the Masters and how I was privileged enough to be able to attend one of the best Masters Sundays in history.
Yeah.
Or certainly in recent history, in terms of storylines with Rory McIlroy winning. But like, I missed so much of that because it was on because I was only able to see what was on the golf hole directly in front of me.
Right.
I missed pretty much what happened on 18 and him actually winning it. So yeah, there's
So
certainly ways like you think about experiencing sports, and I think we all have memories of watching certain events on TV just as fondly as ones in person.
but in that instance, to follow you down that cul-de-sac, talking about the Masters, because it's so committed to the prestige and the traditions, they've got like that famous scoreboards, right? They have the scoreboards
Yep.
around site. They don't have like replay
Right.
screens.
There's no screens anywhere.
Like,
It's just the manual board where you see scores posted.
right, which I think on the one part adds like a certain uh, intrigue and suspense when you're waiting for like the score to change to see if Scotty's catching up or if Rory's gonna take it. But on the other hand, you've no
Right.
idea. I knew before
Yeah.
you, if I was watching at the same time, what was going
Right.
on, and I can't text you because you don't have your
Yeah,
phone there.
exactly. But continue. Yeah.
But we get to, of course, we get to television in the 1930s. The BBC, already dragged through the mud this evening, started broadcasting major sports on radio. The brief, if you listen to Queen's most underrated song, the brief interlude between reading and watching, we had to listen to radio. And obviously that's where we spent decades with, incredibly famous voices painting the visual picture of what's happening on the pitch or on the racetrack, for instance, without us being able to see it. But it means that we have the immediacy and we can hear things live for the first time. And that was that was really as good as it got until 1947, where the first televised World Series happened in baseball, and suddenly we already had TV, but now TV being used in sport, technology has arrived and it's given us something brand new. And we got to watch, I say we, you and I weren't going to be born for another half century, but fans of the Yankees and the Dodgers, if they were lucky enough to be anywhere near the TVs, and the TVs were the size of fridges, they would be able to watch in very limited markets in New York,
TV the size of a
Philadelphia,
fridge,
DC.
and a screen the size of less than my face.
Your iPhone. Yeah. And even after television sort of grew slightly differently in the US and the UK. I think lots of people in the UK refer to like the breakthrough of TV as being the Queen's coronation.
Sure.
Queen Elizabeth II. Lots of people watched her coronation in 1953 on TV. It was, if one person on your street had a TV, everyone was in your
Sure.
house and watching it.
Yeah, the idea
which
of
again,
like idea of like television cameras being brought into Westminster Abbey, crazy,
Right.
crazy.
Yeah, and also like not sacrilegious, but that's like at the time reading for research for this, people were questioning whether or not it was like responsible.
Sure.
Or whether or not it was, if it was more of a sacred moment that had been shared with the masses before, but didn't need to be. And of course, the big sort of watershed in English sport, referring to TV, was of course the 1966 World Cup. The World Cup final drew 32.5 million viewers in the UK, which is still a national record, which is I think is insane.
Broken when England won their latest World Cup, I'm sure. Oh,
Yeah, that's so funny. Thank you kindly for the man representing the nation that's hosting the next World Cup. I'm sure that joke won't come and bite you in the ass. And obviously after the World Cup, I think sport being conveyed through visual, audio, and of course written means they're all available. We have the immediacy. We have live sport. We have recorded. We have TV shows like Grandstand in the UK was like a sports show that compiled highlights reels of different sports. We also had Match of the Day, which I think is the BBC's longest running TV show. I don't know if that's true. That's probably not true. I bet Songs of Praise is higher. And if you know what Songs of Praise is, you actually should delete the BBC Sounds app. It's not good for you. But
no, but I do the match of the day. I remember we watched it at your parents' house, and it was, you were telling me how, like, yeah, this has like been an institution for years. So cool. And like for Americans, I feel like that would be like what This Week in Baseball used to be, or what you could even say like NFL Live or Sports Center, Football Night in America, that sort of thing. Really, really cool.
So that sort of brought us to what we think of as the present, or at least probably the last 20 years, when of course like the internet and mobile technologies further pushed us forward. And I say forward like technologically, it's amazing to be able to stream things. What I would like to ask you, Adam, is whether or not you think being able to consume sports media on your phone has been like a net positive. Do you think it dilutes the enjoyment of watching it on TV or in person? Do you think it has an effect on the sport itself?
Just the raw ability to watch on my phone, I would say I would actually say is a definite positive. I don't think that it's diluted, at least for me. I don't think it dilutes the big moments, because if when there's a big game, when there's something that you're planning to be a part of, or planning to have other people around to be a part of, like, you're gonna make plans to gather around a TV or go somewhere with a big TV and watch the game. I think it's strengthened my fandom quite a bit, and my connection with teams specifically. It is as mind-numbingly difficult as it is to watch the Pittsburgh Pirates on a day-to-day basis. I can watch all of their games. I don't have to wait for the one or two times a year, because of how terrible they are, that they might come on to onto the national game of the week. It's great that I have access to all of these games. Even having access to radio broadcasts on your phone. I distinctly remember when the Penguins won the Stanley Cup in 2016. I was working at a minor league baseball team, and I was like literally helping guide cars into a parking lot for my entire shift. It was not cool. It was a 14-hour day of standing out in the hot sun, not outside of a baseball stadium, not even being able to watch baseball. But by the time that night came around, I pulled up a playoff game on my phone and was able to just listen to it and experience it that way. So that was pretty cool. So long-winded answer of saying I think it's been a massive positive to be able to watch these things on at any time.
So I think, while I agree with you, maybe my question was poorly worded. I think the amount of access that we have to sport at the moment is unprecedented. Obviously, that's a trend that's only increasing. I do though think that there are caveats and there are drawbacks to where we are in terms of access to sport. Most notably, cost to watch sport. If you want to see as much as I think we can consume, if I wanted to watch every Premier League game next year, it would cost me like £150 a month across different subscriptions. However, we are only complaining from a point of privilege, because we are only at a point now where every game that I want to watch is televised. What I think is really interesting is, I and you can watch every televised Premier League game, for instance. Can you give us an insight into how like regionalized rights work in the US? Because I'm sure every Pirates or every Penguins game is being filmed for broadcast, but it's not accessible in, say, New York or North Carolina.
Yeah, so there are the regional sports rights structure is going through a bit of an upheaval right now in the US, just because of changing media habits and the changing economics around cable television. But what the thing that to try to put it as succinctly as possible, in the heyday of cable, the regional sports networks are what they're known as here, where they're the organizations or the networks that would cover every single game for a team. So the Pirates or the Penguins. Also, the same thing with the NBA. That sports basically that aren't football, that aren't the NFL, that only have a game every week. So,
Sure.
if you lived in I'm in New York right now. If you wanted to watch the every Yankees game or every Mets game, you would buy a cable package that included Sports New York or the Yes Network, because those had the Mets and the Yankees respectively.
How do you know how much that would cost?
Shoot, back then I don't know, but it would just be like an add-on to your cable subscription,
Sure.
or
Okay, cool.
whatever the cost of your cable subscription is. I mean, back in
Right.
the day, I don't know, your cable could cost like $30 a month or something, but like now, cable costs way more than that.
Right.
Which is why you see a lot of people not never having bought cable before, or if they had cable, cutting the cord and going kind of moving to streaming, where things are all jumbled up. And to your point, it's hard to find every single game because there's games on so many different platforms. All that to say, cable providers would also partner with the various leagues to create packages called NBA League Pass, NHL Center Ice, MLB Extra Innings, where you could buy kind of a premium tier subscription on top of your cable system, and you could get access, as long as with certain limitations, you could get access to every single game, every single local broadcast to your team. So I, as a
Wow.
Pirates fan, could watch all the Pirates games, even though I lived in North
Sure.
Carolina. So a kind of long way to get there, but it is the model is not so simple now, and
Sure.
it's that is causing a lot of problems in and of itself. But I don't think we need to get into that conversation necessarily. But yeah, so point is, for a while you've been able to watch, if you paid enough money, every single game of your team.
Wow. So I think while that's a little bit different here, I think that's a pretty much like a shared experience. The access that we enjoy in 2025 is crazy, and we take it for granted all the time. I worked today in a customer-facing role, and I am not ashamed to say that I had the cricket on my phone the whole time. Then we also had a tennis match on the TV. And we were streaming both of those. What a incredible way of like keeping track of two different sports that I didn't necessarily care about.
Sure.
The test the test with India is going pretty poorly at the moment, so that didn't make my day. But yeah, and the silly thing is that as you said, with like the cable package being linked to TV, we can also stream on our phones. Absolutely insane, the amount of access that we have. And I think there's some question about the sort of crossover between how society's using technology at the moment and how that's influencing different sports, making sports easier to consume in small doses, shot clocks and things, for like an audience that has an ever shortening attention span. I think is one avenue that we think potentially the future of sports spectatorship might look like.
Well,
the
go ahead.
the other way that I think sports spectatorship could follow is like doubling down on the realism. When you're watching TV, sure, we're all taking the same video and audio stream, and we're enjoying it in my front room, right? That your TV there in the background, that's where you're going to watch sport. What I think is going to be really exciting is when we move into things like virtual reality and these new environments where we can still have like a social, social engagement with our friends in new literally new venues that present sport in a different way. And on that, can you tell us a little bit? This really got us excited a couple of weeks ago when you told me about your watching. Was it ice
It was,
hockey
yes.
in VR?
Yes, the Stanley Cup final. So
Go
there are
unreal.
there are a couple of interesting things that I do want to eventually get back to with TV,
Sure.
but I'm glad that we're able to talk about this. Even if just a little bit. But I had the opportunity to watch the Stanley Cup final in virtual reality with a virtual reality headset, and genuinely one of the more incredible experiences, like technological experiences that I've had in quite some time. It was fascinating because it puts you in an environment where you're put in the rink. There's like 4 or 5 different positions where
Cool.
you move kind of depending on where the puck goes. You'll either be kind of at center ice, you'll be right behind the goalie, you'll be in one of the corners. Really, really fascinating way to watch a game. And also because it's such a new kind of technology, they haven't quite figured it out. It's not quite monetized in the way that it eventually will be yet. So you could
Sure.
you didn't even experience commercial breaks. You were like watching the in arena
Wicked.
entertainment during intermissions. It was really, really interesting. So and then, of course, you could like look up at any time too and see kind of where the jumbotron, where the video board would normally be. You could see the live TV broadcast. So, like if they show a replay or something, you could always see it. So, really cool. You also mentioned you kind of teased at venues that have been opened here in the States by a company called Cosm, where it's basically a giant, almost like a giant IMAX screen or OmniMax screen,
Cool.
where it's just, it goes beyond the level of a normal, 1920 by 1080 box, and you can kind of sit in like a bar area, and the way that the screen is presented, it feels like you're in a stadium. I've seen it done with NFL. I've seen it done with Premier League matches. I've seen it done with baseball, really any sport, and it's a really, really cool way. I haven't been fortunate enough to get to one yet, just to check it out, but yeah, really, really cool way to take in a sport.
So I think what's like so obvious and so interesting, and to me very, very exciting about both of these sort of more futuristic ways of consuming sport is both of them are detached from like the traditional telly broadcast aesthetic, right? Every time you watch hockey, you're watching from a similar angle, and the camera moves in similar ways, and we've got different overlays. What I found was really interesting about how you mentioned the virtual reality working is that you're sort of sat almost amongst fans.
Yeah, you're like you're watching the fans around you as much as you're watching it. Like it literally, and it's interesting because I feel like anytime there's a new technology breakthrough or something that goes a little bit more mainstream, and I don't think VR is necessarily there yet, but like this is kind of a first taste. Is you have that moment where you're like, oh my god, this is like I'll never this is the future. This is so cool. And then whenever, if and when it gets adopted full time, more and more integrated, it just fades into the background. Like there's so many things on the television broadcasts today of any sport that we take for granted. Some of the enhancements, and that's kind of what I wanna segue into a little bit is different aspects, how technology has changed the way that we spectate sports, and even down to the beginning or some of the earlier days of television. One thing, you and I both had a professor at UNC by the name of Matt Andrews, who taught some incredible classes on, looking at sports or looking at history through a sports lens, and how sports and society have shaped kind of our culture and society, which I don't think is too much of a stretch to say is some inspiration for this show. But one of the things that I remember talking about in his class was that the advent of slow motion video really helped to bring football into the American mainstream, or the American football into the mainstream, because football if you go to a game or you just watch it on the normal standard broadcast angle, it's quite chaotic, especially back in the rough and tumble way that the game used to be played. It's hard to tell what's really happening. Once you're able to go back on a replay and watch a player do something in slow motion, or watch kind of how a play broke down, you can understand more of the nuance of the game, and combine that with the incredible scheduling that football naturally has, where you can really only play one game a week, and you have everybody playing at roughly the same time, and all of a sudden you've got the most profitable television product of all time that ever will be. And there's been technology beyond that, but even from something like as that we take for granted so much today, with just slow motion replay, it can be revolutionary to how we think about sports.
And what's incredible about that is slow motion replay was first trialed in 1955.
Yeah.
Which, if anyone was paying attention earlier, and I forgive you for not paying attention, that's 11 years before the FIFA World Cup final that set the record in 1966 in England. It's astonishing. The other most obvious way that we can track the way that sport has looked up to now, and what I think is interesting, and this is the way of marrying these 2 points together, the thing that you're not getting in the VR and COSM is all of like the on-screen overlays, which some cases are trivial, but some cases are really critical for knowing what on earth is going on. If you can picture watching a Formula One race with the same broadcast without a single broadcast overlay, you genuinely wouldn't know who was first. You wouldn't know any of the track. You wouldn't know who's doing well. You wouldn't know who's in the pit unless you can clock the number on the side of their car. You wouldn't know even who is who.
All you would know is is what the announcers tell you. That's it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then that, it's a completely different conversation to talk about. And I think at some point we will come to like the famous voices of sport, and people that have made sport so romantic and with their descriptive power have made it so vivid to people that cannot see it. But I would love to know how much easier their job has become now that Martin Brundle doesn't have to say, oh, by the way, it's Verstappen, it's Leclerc, it's Hamilton, and then go through the whole grid until he got to...
and I wonder, how much of that is ease, and then there's also other things that they're expected to know about. I mean, like they're able to get into some more expertise on the cars themselves. You're able to throw to a Karun Chandop and have a minute on, hey, here's what happened in the pits, and have it not be like, no, I need to know what's happening on track now.
Because there's a box here that has everything still in it.
And then you also have, not to mention, now you've got the ability to see, oh, here's a countdown as to when we think these two cars are going to get into a battle and when there might be an overtake. Like, so it just launches it into another stratosphere. And then I think about it also from watching the NFL or any football game now. One of the things that you cannot live without at this point, actually, I'm going to go back to even before that. To your point on the overlays, it was not until not super long ago that having the time and score on any game was like, that was a rare thing. They might flash it up every once in a while. The broadcasters thought it would be, the networks thought it would be too distracting. Now, if a game doesn't have that on there, you're lost. You're like, it feels like something's wrong. It feels like even watching old games, it feels like it's harder to keep track. It's unreal. But yeah.
Well, and like we've used an example there of like of keeping track of the time in NFL and like keeping the track of like what's happening in Formula One. Let's talk about literally keeping a track of like, if you showed me the broadcast behind Scotty Scheffler driving off the tee, I would never know where that ball is going.
You have no context for it.
Same with whenever I watch hockey, I've no idea where the puck is unless they like show me. And admittedly, that's because I'm not a trained
Sure.
hockey enthusiast. Watching on the TV, sometimes it's more obvious, but like I like it when it's got the little trail.
I was gonna. Okay.
Forgive me.
Yes. So that does. I'm interested here. Have you like encountered that recently? Like the little trail on the.
I like only in like an old video
Okay.
that I've seen. Like it was like noticeably old. It was fuzzy, and I was
Okay.
like, oh, this
Good to know.
it looks like a tadpole.
Okay, so what I'll bet that was is from 1996 through 1998, Fox had the rights to, or had some NHL rights, and they pioneered something called the Glow, that was colloquially known as the Glow Puck. I think it was called Fox Tracks back then.
Sure.
And it was very controversial. People who were, hockey, big hockey fans hated it because it was just, it basically, whenever the puck was hit with speed, it would like change colors, and then like there would be a little trail like you're talking about, which would show where the puck is. Now, if you're trying to get into the sport, my advice for hockey fans is always to go watch it in person first, because it's so much easier to get a feel for it in person. And it's hard to know where, because part of hockey watching on TV is you kind of have to anticipate where you think the puck is going.
Sure,
which
right.
is that's not a very nice reality for somebody trying to get into a new sport. However, it can be wildly distracting and obstructive for a lot of people to see that. So that was, like I said, it was through 1998. It got, taken away. Technology has advanced. Go ahead.
There's an above zero chance that I'm talking about a video game as well.
That also, that's also a big piece of video games too, and I think that could even be part of kind of a tangential discussion here.
Anyway, we'll do video games in a different thing. Go back to what you said.
The Glow Puck was actually brought back for a couple of years. I actually am struggling to remember which broadcaster it was. It may have been I think it was probably NBC when they still had the NHL rights. But they brought kind of an HD version as TV resolutions improved from the 15-20 year period in between the two versions of the Glow Pucks. They brought it back to kind of just have a little kind of almost barely noticeable trail that didn't pop on the screen too much, but if you were trying to find the puck, it made it a lot easier to do so. I actually thought it was really good as somebody who watches a lot of hockey. I didn't think it was very obstructive. Clearly, it was taken away, but anyway, that's just one specific example. Some other examples, you have the line of scrimmage and first down yellow lines on the screen in football. That I was about to get to before.
They're so accurate as well. That's not an easy thing to do.
It's not, and in fact, actually, there's a company based in North Carolina that puts on a lot of those graphics and a lot of advanced graphics on football broadcasts. But yeah, it's something that was, again, once new, and now you can't live without it. Think about Major League Baseball has been a big leader in this. There's actually an interesting discourse that's out there about how baseball as a sport inherently was better on older televisions, where it was a kind of 5:4 resolution instead of a 16:9 resolution. Won't get into that, but there's plenty of others who've talked about that in interesting ways. But in 2001, ESPN introduced a little kind of virtual strike zone that can be controversial because it's not always the most accurate, especially in an era where we're about to have automated balls and strike systems. There are
as somebody who only watches baseball passively, I find the strike zone I find that quite hard to like. I'm quite illiterate to that. I find that hard to like interpret exactly what's happening there.
Interesting. Yeah. So it's like so is it like an extra kind of data point that you're trying to read and it's harder to understand?
I think yes, and like often I think, oh, if the white mark is inside the black box. Surely that's a strike. I'm often
Well,
incorrect.
that's also an umpiring
Okay, good.
probably
Okay,
issue there. But
cool.
yeah, but it's also a graphics. It could also be a
Sure.
graphics inconsistency. But baseball also on certain. I think ESPN's Sunday night baseball broadcasts, they'll have a whole separate like stats based broadcast. There's MLB has a thing called Statcast where it tracks like live kind of advanced data. You can tell a player's swing path. You can tell kind of exactly how much a ball is breaking or is curving as a pitcher's throwing it. You can tell the launch angle of the ball off the bat, and they'll have entire separate broadcasts with all that
Cool.
technology. The college football playoff, they've got ESPN will have all sorts of different options for how you can watch the game with different commentators, with different graphics overlaid. It all can be a little bit too much sometimes, I think.
Right. And I think occasionally I would like I don't know if this happened in the US, but during COVID there was a moment where football was being played in empty stadiums and you could choose to watch your stream of the game, which were played at all sorts of different times, with like the silence, the
What's actually
captured
happening, the real audio.
the captured sound, or with like an artificial crowd noise. And I think the artificial crowd noise got a far better reception than most people think because it was familiar and the quiet was really unnerving.
Yeah.
Also, like the quiet one was really interesting because for the first time you could hear like managers and players talk. Because all of the mics, there are like 30 mics around the pitch, they're all picking everything up. So there was a lot of blue language as well. There were a lot of broadcasters being like, sorry about that, Jamie Vardy didn't mean that about his mum. But also, I think it poses an interesting question. Are there some sports that you would like to watch in a slightly more sanitized broadcast with less on the screen? Is there any sort of, maybe as a last point, is there any slightly more romantic sport that maybe works? I think things like rugby typically don't have too much going on, like on the screen. That's very like all encompassing. There aren't like lines like there are in the NFL. You're not tracing anything. Football typically is quite a quiet screen.
Yeah.
If you could just turn off your visual overlays, what sport would you turn them off on?
I mean, what keeps coming to mind is probably baseball.
Yeah.
I think if you took away a lot of the noise, I think there's a chance that it would be more enhanced than taking away things on other broadcasts. I feel like soccer broadcasts here don't have too much of like an advanced overlay sort of thing. Yeah, I think I would probably have to say baseball. I think baseball is a little bit better when there's a little bit less.
Cool. So that was, I think, I'm pretty pleased with where we've gotten to talking about how we watch different sports.
Wait, actually, sorry, real quick. I want to go back to that. Cool. We also have to mention something that we talked about with in the last episode. I also want to shout out cricket for this too, because not only do they have all of the great, officiating, replay review technology, that is incorporated into broadcasts very well. So I just kind of just a
I
statement.
think cricket does it really well. For a little bit more detail, go and listen to 16 on officiating, but the snicker meter, the infrared, great use of action slow motion replays. Cricket's got it really like really good. You get like maps of like different shot patterns and shot placements. Cricket does do it well. Cricket, I know people joke on it for being a bit of an old-fashioned game, and sure, it definitely is. It's got its old traditions, but I think often it stands pretty close to the cutting edge on some like really useful visual aids and officiating aids.
Well, anything else that you think we need to get to on this?
I don't think so. I am excited to talk about in our next episode another way that we're watching sport differently because of technology, and it's the role of technology in the way that the game is now being played.
Yes.
We're watching it through the same TVs, we're watching it in the same bars with the IMAX screens, but the sport itself is being dictated by emerging technologies, the new use of analysis, even new hardware, and that's what we're going to focus on in episode 18.
And that, my friends, is what we call in the biz a tease. Well done, Harry.
It was a great tease. Thank you.
Well done. Yeah. Thank you, and thank you for watching at home, please, or wherever you might be. That's the beauty of these things we were talking about, these little streaming devices. We can watch these or listen to these anywhere. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe to us on YouTube. There's going to be a lot more content coming soon, a lot more quickly than it was coming out before, now that I moved into a new place. Subscribe to us there, leave a like, leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you. Check us out on Spotify, leave a rating or leave a review. We're on TikTok still. Harry's got, if you're watching this, there's actually, I would imagine that Harry's latest kind of deep dive into a fun sporting event is probably out by now, but check that out if you haven't already.
If it's not, I've
something's wrong.
That should be up
well
tomorrow as well.
And also, we want to give a major shout out and a major thank you to producer Luke.
Yes, if anybody noticed, the thumbnail looked a little bit different. We've taken a bit of time to refresh the Athlantic logo. It's now something completely brand new, and a very good friend of the show, Luke, helped produce that. He just came up with that. That just came out of his head.
I mean, he did.
He did the whole goddamn thing, and it's really good, and we really like it. So yeah, you will have seen that. That's what everything's going to look like moving forward. Message us if you want merchandise.
Yeah, that's the new frontier.
Or don't. Yeah, we're not there yet. It's okay. I might get a hat, but it's okay. Okay, Adam, well, remember, it doesn't matter if you call them sneakers
or trainers. We all love sports. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.